Oh my gosh, hi, hello. Oh, I haven't done a face cam stream in a long time, so I feel a bit shy. But hello, welcome. It's good to see you. This is a bit of a random stream because I felt like it, and I was doing work like all day, so I was like, let me just kind of reward myself and play some Disney Dreamlight Valley with you guys. Because I've been putting off playing like the full update because I want to do that with you guys. Like, I haven't even placed Daisy's house yet, so I haven't even seen Daisy or anything about Daisy. If you play the game, you'll know that in the recent update, Daisy has come into the game. I also was considering starting doing the star paths. I've been doing a few of the tasks and collecting like the tokens, but like I haven't really equipped any, like redeemed anything yet. But I wanted to do that with you guys. Yeah, long time no see. I don't even remember when the last time I streamed was. It's been a busy week, and both the last 2 weekends I wasn't in my room, so I couldn't stream. But yeah, and I have exams coming up, so yeah, streams are not going to be as like a scheduled stream time, whatever. It's just going to be whenever I can, and I'll try my best to like update that on all my socials. But it's been a crazy week. We've been hitting a lot of like milestones on across all my platforms, and I've been very happy. Hi, welcome. It's good to see you. How you doing? Oh, we have a still ad break. Okay, I won't say too much important stuff, but do grab your snacks and go to the loo, whatever, quickly before we do get into anything exciting. Yeah, nothing really exciting is happening. Just exams, and I have an assignment due, which I was already working on this today. Like a group assignment that I was doing with a group, then we write the report individually. Oh, I didn't open mix up. Hello, Lib. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't open mix it up. So, you know, you get that gold coin, don't you worry. I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah, don't forget to redeem your gold coins, guys. I'm gonna open mix up. Don't worry about it. Hold on. I love you. I love you. Okay. What was I on about? Oh, yeah, I had a group assignment. Actually, I had 2 group assignments. Last week I did like a presentation as a group, and then this week I had like this whole research thing. I study psychology, if you don't know, and it's probably gonna be boring to talk about, but we did like this mini study, and then we have to write a report about it. Yeah, it's kind of boring. But yeah, more exciting things happening is I'm doing Astra's 30-day streamer content creation challenge. I was doing my day in my life thing today because today I was actually quite productive, so I was like, let me just take some photos. It's gonna be like a slideshow thing. I'm gonna upload that after stream, and then I have to do the Q&A announcement as well. So if you have any questions, prepare those because I'll be announcing that later tonight as well. How is the challenge going? The challenge is going well, other than the fact I am like a day behind, but that's because yesterday I did nothing fun other than travel back to my uni because I was at my parents' house for the weekend. So I'm just like 1 day behind, but I'm making up by posting 2 days today. It's fun. It's really fun. If you are interested in it, it's on Astra's page. On basically all her socials, I'm pretty sure it's on there. It's very fun, and it's making sure that I actually like get some sort of content out every day. Like, I can't run out of ideas at the moment because there's like something to do every day with the challenge. I have been trying to make some more like funny videos, I guess, more relatable funny videos as well on TikTok. But yeah, I posted this one yesterday, I think, and I swear every time I post about like because I play like Valorant and like FPS games as well. Whenever I post about that, there's always someone that has to have something to say about my skill, about me being a girl playing these games. Like, there's always somebody, and it's always someone without a profile picture and someone without any post. Hi, Kat! You're here. Good, good. I'm just ranting about the comments I get whenever I post about my FPS like clips and stuff. Because I'm not claiming that I'm amazing at these. I'm just sharing like my experience, and then there's always someone that's like, oh, I'm like whatever high rank and you're just having a skill issue. I'm just like, bro, I literally, like, the post I made was literally about me always top fragging, but we always lose the game because there's always a smurf on the other team. Like, if you play Valorant, you'll get it, but like, it just don't understand why there's people like that. Thank you for redeeming your daily gold coin. Oh my gosh, you have 3 now? Hi, Miso. Oh, it's so good to have you here. And yeah, I know I haven't really been using my webcam for the past few streams. Like, I think the past like 3 or 4 streams I was using my PNG tuber because I was like looking grubby and just tired. So not to brag, but I now think you're big. Love that. How am I? I am good. I'm just busy, I guess, but I'm good, and I'm happy to be here today and be able to stream for you guys because it's been a while, and I'm very excited to stream Disney Dreamlight Valley. Thank you for redeeming your first gold coin. Let's go. First of many, I hope. I also don't know how my sound for the stream's gonna be because I messed around with it trying to follow a tutorial because I don't want to get copyrighted anymore, and I don't know if I did it right. So, you know, we'll find out. Wow, everyone's redeeming their gold coins. Thank you for redeeming your gold coins, Sleepy. 7 gold coins now. Oh, Cat, you got a bit of competition here. Eevee, hello. Thank you for redeeming your gold coin. How are you doing? Oh my gosh, hi. Oh, hi. Wait. Oh, I need to get my audio tracks up too. Yeah, I literally don't know how, but hopefully it works. If not, Eevee said she's gonna help me. So Alicia, hi. It's good to see you. I'm doing well, thank you. Just giving everyone a little catch up because there's like a lot going on right now in my life. But you're doing all right. Eating some lunch. That is very good. I just had dinner because it's like 8 p.m. here. That's crazy. The time zones are crazy to me. Yeah, if you guys wanted to see what I had for dinner, you can check that out on my Twitter. It was nothing amazing. It was just like shepherd's pie and chips, which is probably not the most healthiest diet. I had shepherd pie and chips. But yeah, I always seem to burn my tongue when I eat the shepherd pie. I don't know why. I literally waited for a bit as well and was like blowing it, and I was just like still burnt my tongue somehow. It's just something that always happens. You just devoured a chicken burger. I love chicken burgers. I'm quite like I feel like unoriginal because whenever I go to like a restaurant, I always get chicken burger. Even if it's like a new restaurant where you can try like new foods, I always seem to end up getting a chicken burger. Walking to my exam right now. Oh my gosh, no. Okay, well, good luck with your exam, and no worries. Next time you can definitely probably catch my stream and rewatch the VOD, whatever you want to do. But good luck with your exam. It's exam season, I'm guessing, for everybody. You had ham and chip sandwich. Classic. Ham and cheese sandwiches are great though, and good you ate before your exam. I struggle to eat before exams because I get really anxious, but it's very good that you ate before your exam. But yeah, it's exam season, it seems. I have exams coming up as well. Oh, hello. Hi, it's been a long time. How have you been? I've been good. How are you doing? Hope you have a wonderful stream, girl. Thank you. Hope to see you again soon. Yes. Hopefully. I should be alive for about 2 hours. I don't know how long your exam is, but if not, then there's always next time for sure. yeah, exam season. I have exams coming up, guys, so my stream schedule is going to be a bit hit or miss. I will announce them on my socials, like, in a much advance as I can. But, you know, if you have your notifications on Twitch, then you'll see when I come live. That's good to hear. Thank you. Yeah, exam season. But then after exams, I have no more uni for like 3 months or something. And I'll be moving to a new flat where I will be able to have my own space. Even though my boyfriend wants to have a desk as well, we're gonna have to get, like, it'll be my own space, but he'll be there next to me. But yeah, I will get my own space somewhat. How many years are you doing in uni? I am doing 5 years, and I'm currently in my 3rd. So I did a foundation year, and then I was just in my 1st year last academic year, and then now I'm in my 2nd year, about to do my exams. Next year is a placement year, so that's when I do like a year of working, and then the final year, so 5 years, and I graduate in 2026. It's a long one. You know, psychology course isn't normally that long. I just took the long route for some reason. I feel like time is moving really fast, so yeah, it is moving very fast. Like, it doesn't feel like I've been at uni for 3 years, and it doesn't feel like I'm gonna graduate in 2 years. It doesn't feel like that at all. It's crazy. Because like only yesterday I was moving into my 1st year accommodation and meeting my friends that I made online prior to moving to the uni, and just seeing how we were to where we are now is crazy. It's crazy. Oh my gosh, hi. Welcome. I'm giving everyone a little catch up because there's so much going on. And yeah, and we're gonna play some Disney Dreamlight Valley because I want to play the update with you guys. I will admit to you guys that I have been playing some Disney Dreamlight Valley off of the stream, but I tried to do the boring stuff like grinding for money and leveling up my favorite characters. So, you know, I have been playing it, but I haven't played the update yet. I've saved that for stream because I want to play it with you guys. So the first thing we're gonna do actually is the daily foraging and selling items, and then we're gonna try and make space for Daisy because my valley is very, very messy. I don't like it, but I'm not gonna decorate until I have, what's it called, unlocked all the biomes. Offline gaming is good for the gaming spirit. Yes, it is. Like, when I got this game, I said it was gonna be my game, like I wouldn't stream it. But then, like, the community of Disney Dreamlight Valley is so nice that I just, like, I need to stream it. Like, I need to share my experience with people. Wait, do you still not still play Valorant? Oh, I do play Valorant, don't you worry. Just I refuse to stream it at the moment because it makes me very angry. And I'll admit to you guys as well that I have been chat banned a lot. So we will not be streaming Valorant anytime soon. It makes me so angry, and my friends just want to play like competitive all the time, and then I always lose even though I'm doing well. I'm hard stock bronze, and it's just no improvement because it's just back and forth. Hello, recall codes. That is a nice name. What does it mean? Welcome. I'm just yapping about what's going on in my life right now and our plan for stream. Actually, before I do any foraging, I'm gonna show you all my outfits because I bought a lot of new ones and came up with some cute like combinations. I'll show you now. Let's just get into it because I'm gonna keep yapping and we can keep yapping and play at the same time. So at the moment we're going with a very Rapunzel vibe. Beautiful is your name spelled backwards. Walker. It took me a moment to read it backwards. And you like code. Nice. I like it. You love my character? Thank you. I spent a lot of money on this hair. And then I just got this cami top. yesterday, and I love purple, so I was like, I'm gonna get it. And then the skirt, the pink skirt, and then this backpack is also from Rapunzel. And then the shoes are just random ones I thought go with it. But I do have like a bunch of new items that I wanted to show you guys. So what I was wearing the other day when I was doing my quest with Minnie, because I recently just got Minnie, was like I made this cute little top, and then the yellow skirt, and then these high heels, and then white socks, and then her hair was like this, I think. And then I had like my hat, which was this, and then I had no backpack. And I was just running around with Minnie like this. Like, how cute! Just for the time being before I unlock Minnie's outfit. Because I do have her at level 10, but I have to do the quest. But then you have to do like other stuff before you can do that quest to then get the outfit. It's like a whole thing. But at the moment, I like recently, like yesterday, I just got this like cami top. Also did a quest for Remy, and I was literally a chef, and it was like so cute. I kept like the bottom half the same, and then I just went and cooked looking like this. I think it goes so well. Actually, I changed the shoes as well. Shoes. I put like yellow shoes on. How cute! Anyway, let me put on those are like just the newest things I've gotten recently. I also got Ursula to level 10 finally, so I can get her dress, but I what's it called? I have to do the quest. Where's the hair? This hair, and then this backpack. Okay, so I already like tracked the quest that we're going to start with. Well, not start with. We're gonna do first before any of the other quests, and that's place Daisy's house in the valley. But before that, we're gonna do some clearing of the valley because the daily stuff has spawned in. I do just want to check as well who we have to level up because I'm preparing them for when I do unlock the biome, this sunlit plateau. I don't know how to say the word. Don't come at me. So we're gonna look at who needs to be leveled up before I do that. Remy, but then I get Wally. I don't know how to get new characters. So, okay, we can level up Scrooge. What level is he on right now? He's very close to being leveled up. So if we go and find him, he's over there. Okay. Oh yeah, he's right in front of me. I'm blind. Oh, and I was gonna play some like music and hope that it's like non-copyrighted, but I don't know. And I also don't know if I put my tracks properly. So we'll find out, won't we? Oh, I'm trying to like use my second screen. Okay. Where did he go? He moved. Oh my god, he moved. Okay, he's over there. So as you can see, my valley is very messy. We'll do our daily talk with him as well. That helps with like leveling them up. I could always do with a little advice. Don't ever go discounting the value of the advice. Okay, very wise. Orca. Okra. I don't even think I have okra or I don't know how to say words, bro. I don't know how to say words. I don't even think I have that unlocked. Oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys the new Star Pass. If you play the game, you've probably seen it, but the new Star Pass is a day at Disney, and it's like how do I events rewards? You can make like your own Disney World, Disneyland, I guess. I kind of regret that I didn't do the last Star Pass because the last Star Pass had lots of cute stuff, but now it has like, can I look at this? Yeah, it has this, and that's not the cutest. Then it has like stuff like um these things. I mean, this as well. It's not the cutest. I'm sorry, but this is pretty cool. Like we can make a section where we can put these down, I guess, and then lots of like new multiplayer stuff happen. But I don't know how to do that yet because I haven't asked my friends who play it yet if they figured it out. And then these are like the quests, and I've been trying to do these as well, but I'm still debating whether to get the premium star path or not, but we'll see. Anyways, is he gonna hang out with us?
Good day to you.
Let's hang out. Okay, so now I'm just gonna literally just run around and pick up everything until my inventory gets full, and then I will sell and keep whatever I think I need to, and that's how I normally start the game. Whenever I log in, I just do a little bit of this, and I take my friend who needs leveling up with me, and they level up, and I get to sell things and get money. Don't know how else I meant to play the game. If you have the Moonstone to spare, and you really like a lot of the stuff in the Star Pass, it's always worth unlocking the premium one. Yeah, I was thinking that, but I'm still like debating if I even like the Star Pass. But then I don't want to regret not getting it because I regret not getting the last Star Pass. I didn't do anything for the last Star Pass, and I wish I did now. So it's just a bit of a predicament, and I'm very indecisive. Ooh, free Moonstone. That's valid. I'm not a huge fan of this one. Yeah, I'm not like a major fan. Like, I'm not jumping at it. The fact that I'm indecisive probably indicates that I'm not really that into it. I've forgotten the controls. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I've been playing so much on the Switch that I forgot the controls. Oh my gosh, hi Sydney! Thank you for redeeming your gold coin. How are you doing? Thank you for redeeming your gold coin as well. Both of yours first full coins, first of many, I hope. You're sleepy. I'm doing okay. I'm actually quite like decently awake. But I did just eat and I can feel like a food coma hitting me, Loki. But I've been quite productive today, and when I'm productive I get really like energetic. But yeah, I'm just doing some of my clearing of the valley, my daily clear out, and leveling up Scrooge, and then we're gonna place Daisy's house because I haven't done that yet because I was waiting to do it on stream. But I've forgotten like the controls on. Yeah, I've been so used to just clicking on the Switch like the top two buttons. Because every night before I sleep, I like go on the game on the Switch and I do some foraging and leveling up like every night. Even if it's like 4 a.m. Because if you know me, then you know my sleep schedule is a bit backwards and broken. Okay, he's leveled up. That was easy, right? But did we need him 7 or 8? I don't remember. But there's no harm in leveling him up to level whatever because... Oh yeah, it's 8. Okay, that's fine. We'll keep him around, I guess. He's pretty decent. I am excited to see Daisy and like placing Daisy's house because I'm pretty sure her house is her house the boutique? I don't know. I just saw in someone's video that Daisy had a boutique and in like the trailer, I think. It looks pretty cool. Thank you for the look, assertive. I appreciate you. Don't know if you can hear me, but thank you. This game though is so relaxing. Like it makes me very happy playing this game, and I actually like feel motivated to stream when I know that I'm gonna stream this game, which is a good thing. That's why in my like top tips for my challenge was that play the game that you want to play, because otherwise you're not going to be motivated to stream if you're playing a game you don't want to play. I think that's why I ended up taking like a huge break before, because I was just streaming Valorant and like it just made me depressed. Because that game is I don't even want to go into it anymore. I could go on for hours about how much I hate Valorant. You've heard that advice a lot. Team Solid. It is. Well, it works for me and a lot of other streamers, so it is pretty solid. And it makes sense. Like, if you're not enjoying a game, why would you want to spend hours and hours streaming it? And it brings in like the right people that you want on your channel. If you're playing a game that you like, then you know the people that you bring in will be the people you want to interact with. People can tell if you're just grinding out a stream without passion. Yeah, exactly. I think, like, I started streaming in last year, August, and I just streamed Valorant all the time. And I thought that that was all I could stream because I had a lot of friends at the time that streamed Valorant. But all of us, like, those streamer friends that I had when I started out don't even really stream anymore, because I think Valorant was just a burnout game. Like, it burnt them out and it burnt me out. Hello, Mochi. Mochi Bear. That's such a cute name. How are you doing? Welcome in. You found me from TikTok? That makes me really happy. You're doing good? How am I? I am doing good as well. I've been very productive, so I feel very like fulfilled in a way. Like, I had a good day. And now I'm playing my favorite game and sharing it with you guys. What more can I ask for? You found me from Threads? Oh my gosh, I haven't even posted on Threads in ages. I kind of like forgot I had that account. I've been posting a lot on Twitter, like a lot. Like, I just yap and go on one on Twitter now. I never used Twitter or Threads or Instagram like properly before I made content. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, if you play this game, 6 raspberries will fill up your stamina. Yes, we followed each other recently. Wanted to come and support. Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you. I feel bad sometimes because on TikTok, like, I'm not trying to brag here. It's just like, I don't know how to keep up with notifications that well. So I never have my notifications on for like my social medias. So when I go on and I get like a list full of like new followers, I'm just like, hold on, what's going on? And then I try and go through as many as I can and follow back as many as I can. But I just, yeah, I get overwhelmed. So yeah, if I don't follow back, then I apologize, but I sure will go check that afterwards. I don't remember if I have or haven't. I will double check to be sure. Because, you know, while I don't really like support, like, you know, there's people who go and just comment like follow for follow, like, I won't usually follow them back, because I want people who actually want to interact with my content because they like my content, and then I tend to like their content too, because if they like my content, then they probably play the same kind of games as me. So it makes sense. But yeah, I'm just going for a waffle now. Thank you for the lurk. The threads has been odd lately. Suggest posts from less active accounts even. Glad I found you one way or another. You seem like a nice person. Oh, thank you. I turn most of my notifs off. Can't stand the spam. Mostly just Twitch and live notice for me. Yeah, I have my Twitch live notice on as well because I don't like I follow loads of people, but I don't have all their like notifications on. Not because I don't want them on. It's just like I manage it that way so that I don't get too many spam. But oh no, I missed the last coin. That's so sad. More recently though, on like TikTok, for example, I've been getting and YouTube actually. I don't have any notifications from my YouTube like studio app because I don't want to see the comments. But sometimes the comments have been very mean recently, and I don't want to see that, and I don't want to get a notification about that, so I just turn them off. And I also put like a app limit on some of my apps so that I don't feel tempted to go and read the hate comments because I am curious and curiosity killed the cat, whatever that saying is. It's not good for me, basically. And it's not good for anybody to go and see those kind of comments. Something that was really nice one time that happened was I got like a hate comment on YouTube. And before I even saw it, someone who followed me or like someone like had already responded like defending me. And that made me really happy. Like I was like glad I didn't see the comment like when it was freshly sent and that someone had already supported me in a way. It was very nice. But yeah, I know that like you shouldn't interact with like hate comments, but sometimes it's really hard. Like sometimes they're really funny. The comments are really funny and just don't make any sense. And I just want to call them out for not even making any sense. But then you just engage with them and it just makes like you're just putting energy into something that's not positive and it's not good. And that's why people say don't reply to hate comments. So I probably shouldn't. And then loads of people tell me, oh, like, if you're getting hate comments, then that means that you've made it. And I'm just like, I don't feel like I've made anything. I just feel like everyone hates me. No, the love and support I've been getting recently has definitely outweighed those hate comments and has made me want to keep going. And, like, even though I've been super busy and I'm still getting some, like, the support and stuff, it's just crazy. Like, it makes me very happy. Oh yeah, guys, I got Hey Hey from the shop. How do I show you this? Look at him! He's so goofy! I didn't realize he tries to walk away. That's so funny. Look at that. He's so funny. Anyway, that was like from the shop. The shop changes soon in 16 hours. I'm debating whether to get this dress. Cute little guy, right? I love Moana. And I love Hey Hey and Pua, which is the pig. Okay. Yeah, I'm debating whether to get this dress. Yeah, I got the Hey Hey bundle. I also got Frozen Elsa, even though I don't have Elsa yet. I haven't found her yet. But I wanted to get this version because I didn't know that the version you get is this version, which is from Frozen 2. Nothing wrong with Frozen 2, but I'm an OG girly. I know all the words to Let It Go. Don't know if that's a flex, but I do. It's because my sister, like, would watch Frozen so much when she was younger, and I'd just be there watching it with her. There was a time when I watched it so much I hated it, but now it's not that bad. And I love the songs. I know like majority of the words to all the songs in Frozen. Oh. Yeah. I never played this game at nighttime though. Like, as in-game nighttime, because is it? See, like, it's getting dark outside my window. It was light when I started streaming, but now it's dark, and so my game would turn to nighttime as well, and I don't like that. So I always have to offset my time by like a few hours, so that it's like I always like to play in like sunset time, because I love sunset or sunrise. I completely forgot I actually upgraded my storage, so I have lots of space. Oh yeah, and I got Stitch recently. Like, I didn't realize that doing like a certain quest that I did was gonna get me Stitch. So I'm sorry again, guys. I played the game off stream, I know, and I unlocked the character. I'm sorry. It just happened. But this is his house. It's cute, right? And like the windows are so nice. And like it has the washing machine because like in the movie and stuff. It's cute. I put him on the beach because I thought that made sense. Right? It makes sense. Yeah. I don't even know what's his name? Scrooge? What is his, like, speciality? Foraging. I don't really, like, hang out with particular characters when I'm doing a particular thing, because whenever I'm running around and, like, picking up stuff, I never really stick to just doing one thing at a time. Like, I don't just run around and collect all the fruit and then run around and collect all the flowers. Like, I don't really do that. I just pick up everything and sell it or keep it, whatever. So, I thought at first that I had to like hang out with the particular character that was for the particular thing I was doing. Like if I was doing mining, I'd need to equip someone whose specialities in mining, but I don't. Like they will level up anyway. Like he gets stars from like anything I do really. And something I saw when I was searching up about storage, because my storage room is horrible, was to put like those house chests that you get from Scrooge's shop around your valley so that you can easily deposit it there, and then when you go back to your house you can easily move it into the correct storage. So I did that. I only had three, so I have one in my house, one in the meadow, and one in the forest. So I've been using that, which is good. When I sell things, I usually sell the flowers, any like extra raspberries I have. I try to keep 100 raspberries at a time. I don't really keep like the fruit or the veg. I just sell that. I've been keeping my wood recently and stone and any of these gems, and also seeds and coal I've been keeping as well, but the rest I sell at the moment. Just don't really need it. And like while people say like you should stock up, at the same time, like while I do want to do that, at the same time I also don't oh wow, that's too bright. At the same time I don't really care. Like I'm gonna forage and harvest stuff anyways. Like that's part of the game, I kind of lost my train of thought for a second. But it's part of the game to kind of go around and these things respawn. So I'm not trying to speed run through the quests. So I don't mind not having it stocked up. Hello. welcome. It's good to see you. I'm just doing my like daily clear out of my valley, and then we're gonna place Daisy's house. Makes sense? I hope it makes sense. I think I kind of lost my train of thought and just was rambling on, but you know, if you, it's fine. It's fine. So I've only been playing this game for like a month now, so that's why my valley is very messy. I haven't got all the biomes, I haven't got that many characters. My storage room is I will show you that in a moment. It's not that great. But I've seen some inspo and I have a vision of what I want it to look like, but I have no idea how to execute it. If I share it at some point, I don't know if I'll share it. I don't have the image right now, it's on my phone. But if I share it, does anyone think they could send me tips on how to accomplish that? Because it's like this like greenhouse inspired looking one, and I want to make something like that. Dude, I've been playing this game since it came out, basically, and my bio still looks trash. Girl, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't. We need to play at the same time, Eevee, so that I can like visit your valley. I don't know how multiplayer works, but I would love to. I think I can visit your valley. I want to see it. You're playing right now? I can visit if I want. How do I visit though? Do I know how to do this? Do I need to go to this thing? Where is it? Where did I put it? Where am I? This thing. Wait. Let me just quickly teleport and walk over to it. Oh, we have an ad, guys. Make sure to go get some food, water, drink, whatever. Have a toilet break. I'm sure we can figure it out. Here, let me just side quest real quick. As in, like, make my own quest and try and figure out how to do this, because it'll be very cool. Use. Wait, I don't have you as a friend. Wait. I am... Okay. Your friends will be able to visit you with a special code. Open my connection for valley visits. Oh wait, I think this means like you can come to my valley. So would I? How do? Oh god, it's gonna give me a passcode. Someone's just gonna randomly appear in my valley. Are you sure? What's the worst that could happen?
The sun's shining almost as bright as my money.
Hi Mochi. How is your little break? No, it's okay. I knew the ads were going. I'm just at this portal-y thing and I've gotten a code, but I think that's for you to come to mine. I don't know how I meant to go to yours. Okay, invite friends. Invite friends? Oh, I know. Oh, you'd have to invite me, Eevee. I'm playing Overwatch in between watching you. That's fine. I always do that. I always have like a stream open and while I'm playing like Valorant or something. But I've actually never played Overwatch, so you know, I think the game's a bit fast for me, and I like kind of like there's so much going on that my eyes just. But I do want to try it. If you're going into a valley, you need to go to the main screen. Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Hold on, guys. Wait, can I close? They will give you. Okay. We're what's it called? We're gonna pause foraging and leveling up, Scrooge. We're gonna BRB. Thank you for the tip and good luck in your games. Okay, return to home title screen, and let's see if we can do this. It'd be so cool if I can go visit Eevee. But then we will go back and I'll make Daisy's house and all that stuff. Right, so multiplayer. Okay. Oh, it changed my screen when I used my number pad. Oh, yeah. Can I visit even if you're in North America? Please, 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 please. Because I'm in Europe, I'm in the UK. Will it let me connect to a North America server? Like, is that how it works? I don't know. Something's happening. Something is happening. Eevee, I'm on the way to visiting you. Something's happening. Oh my god. I really wanted to see what this. Oh my god, you have like a carrot. Yeah, Maui. He's so big. Why is he so big? Oh my god, Eevee.
Use a few more sleds around here.
Oh my god, Eevee. Hi. You look so cool. I love your headgear. Whoa, your shop is fully upgraded. And Remy's restaurant. And oh my gosh, Anna, this is so cool. I wish you could emote. Yeah, I was literally trying to emote, like pressing a button. I was like trying to crouch because like in some games you can crouch and like communicate that way. But you know, I'm just gonna like spin it around in a circle. Oh my god, Olaf! Oh my god, he's so cute. Oh, he lost his nose. Is there any way to talk? There's no way to talk. I can like mine stuff with you.
Wow, you are really getting this.
Oh my god, is he flirting with me? Is he flirting with me? Okay, show me around then. I'll follow you. Is my stream gonna lag now because wait, whose is this house? Or is this just a tower? Oh, okay.
Wow, what an amazing day.
Okay, yeah, I have Mirabelle's house here as well because I didn't know where else to put it. Oh my gosh, I like the you have a carousel? Oh my gosh. It's so cute. Oh no! Spoilers! Spoilers! Oh, it's Woody's house. I haven't met the Forgotten yet. That's a spoiler, Eevee. Have you like yeah? Can I see the map? Oh, I can. Wow, you have a lot of people. Oh my gosh, you have Jack Skellington. That's crazy. You have so many. Oh my god, Moana! This is so cool. Is this a house as well? Or is it just a random truck? Oh my gosh, it's Sully. It's Wally's house? Oh my god, that makes sense! Oh, cute. I put the Minnie and Mickey's house next to each other as well. Whose is this house? The fact I don't know is a bit bad. Oh my god, Mike Wazowski. Look at them. I'm loving this. Oh, but that makes sense. Is this his spaceship? Oh, this is the next biome that I was gonna unlock actually. Whoa. Whoa, what is this? This is terrifying. Oh, this leads to another biome? There's fire everywhere. Oh my gosh, does this mean I can get, like, if I harvest stuff from your biome, do I keep that stuff? Or I don't know how this works. I can, like, drop stuff to you. I can give you stuff. Oh, this is, I can't go in their houses, though. Can I harvest things? I can. Oh. Can I buy from your shop? Because I would love to have some. Oh, I can't. I want to steal your pumpkin seeds. Whose house is this? The like tree house with the thorns. Oh, okay. Spoilers. I'm not looking. Where's this? Gooseberry! Oh my god, who really wanted gooseberries? Minnie really wanted gooseberries. I can give that to Minnie now. Is this spoilers? Are you showing me spoilers right now? What is this? Silver wood. I mean, it is spoilers even if I don't explain anything. True, I've not unlocked this biome. What biome is this? Forgotten land. Oh, it makes sense. I still have the sunlit thingy, Forgotten Land, and the Frosted Heights to get, and then I'm done. Do you have the DLC, Eevee? You wish? Oh, okay. I have it, but I haven't played it yet, so I don't really know much about it. I've been putting it off because I wanted to focus on the main valley. Whoa, what are these? Cotton? Flowers? That's cool. Oh my gosh, this place is so pretty. This is the place I'm gonna unlock next. It is cotton, I was right, yeah. Full quest, nice. Why are there skulls everywhere? Bit scary. Where's the egg? I haven't seen eggs in my valley for a long time. Oh. I can see the stream lagging. I don't know if it's because I've gone like on a because I'm on your valley. I don't know. It's like made me lag a bit. Do you want to come to my valley? My valley's not as exciting. Yeah, because it's online now. Can I go in this shop? I can't go in any of the buildings. It's so sad. I'm just following Eevee now. I feel like she's gonna show me something. What the heck? This looks so cool! Did you decorate this? I was thinking of moving Vanellope into this biome and then putting Daisy into the main area. It was for a quest? Oh my gosh, I love it! Ooh, the what's it called? Frosted Heights or something? What is this? Oh, it's your chest. This is where Elsa lives? Where is Elsa's house? Oh! Greenstone! Very cool. I'm yet to get this biome. But I am gonna get the sunlit one first. Elsa's house is technically a cave. Oh! What, the one like over there? That is cool. I can't wait to see that. Oh, it's here. Oh, I can't go in. I can't go into the house. That's so sad. This is so cool. I love this. And then like, what, I can like, if I need resources I don't have, like, I can ask you for them. Is that how, is that why there's multiplayer? I don't really understand. We can't emote or do anything. Can we take pictures together? Oh my god. How do I do this? Why we're taking a picture together? Pose! Pose for the gram. Oh wait, you can't. Oh, okay. Let me just, E. There we go. Cute. Let me save that on my phone as well. Oh, you are posing now. Let's go. Okay. Okay, let me recapture. We have our model faces on. We're not even smiling. This is how online friends hang out because we can't meet in person because it would break our banks to meet in person. Oh, this is amazing. This is great. So a bunch of us together now. Yeah, I can do a smiling one. Oh yeah, I forgot we can change our faces to be happy. Okay. Do you want to come to my valley? That's okay. Yeah? Okay. How do I save and then that's okay. I need to get back to my quests anyways, but do stop by quickly for a little bit. Just for a little teeny weeny bit. Are you gonna be streaming tonight? I don't know what time it is there for you actually. Oh, that's why. Okay, okay. Let's let me just quickly turn my thing on and then I mean you can come if you want to. Okay. That's the code. Okay. I put the like this thing in the corner over here because it was like the sound of it was really annoying me when it was like near my house. So I just put it in the corner where it's away from me. Huh. It says Eevee is joining. I want to see what this looks like as she joins. Maybe if we mention to the creators of this game that they should add emotes, then maybe they will add emotes. Wish, hi! Welcome to my valley. It's a mess. This is my meadows. It's kind of similar to yours because I have Mirabelle here as well. It's kind of crazy how big Mirabelle's house is, but the inside is literally just a tiny room. I want to show you. Um, where is she? Where is she? Oh, Ursula. Yeah, it just takes up so much space, and then you go inside, and it's like the smallest thing. I was like, at least make it bigger inside. And then Vanellope's house or Mickey's house is so small, and you go inside, and it's like huge. I'm gonna let you meet my Ursula because. Oh wait, you can't go inside. No, I can't show you her. She's inside her house. What a loser. Anyways, this is my beach. I don't know how to get rid of you know the mushrooms, the pink mushrooms? I don't know how to get rid of those, so I have to go all the way around. And like these like what are these things called? These things? I don't know how to get rid of these. Is that like a quest or do I have to do okay from a quest? Okay. No. Makes sense. I guess you've seen all of this before because you've had the game for a long time. I can show you like one cool thing that might be different from yours, I guess. Is something I'm quite proud of having in my valley. This recycling bin. Isn't it, do you like it? Yeah. The rest is yeah, oh wait, oh, you can't even see my house inside, but you can see the outside of my house. It's this cottage. This is my house. Can you go inside my house? Oh, you have visitors? Do you want to bring everyone into the building with you? I can bring you inside. Wait. Yeah, I can. This is my house. This is my awful storage room. Oh. Yeah, look how bad it looks. Yeah. And then my bedroom. I like my bedroom. It's very purple. Yeah. and that's the tour. Very cute. Thank you. I tried to keep some sort of theme, but my furniture's a bit mismatched. But yeah, you go prep for your stream now. I'll try and lurk. Well, I don't know how my stream will run if I have any tabs open, but I'll join afterwards and say hi. And thank you for the gooseberries, the red whatever flower that is, and some dry wood that I took from your valley. How do you leave? You just go to settings and then return back to your title screen. And then it will just leave. Bye. Looks pretty consistent. Thank you. I tried. That was very fun. That was very cool. We should yeah, we should do that again sometime. finally figured it out. I think with the like Star Pass, like if you get like the rides, I don't know, I saw in the like trailer that you can like go on the rides, but I don't know if I can go on the rides like as a visitor. you know. Okay. We can go and get, what's his name again? Scrooge McDuck, whatever his name is, and finish clearing up the valley. And then I'm thinking of putting, I wanted to put Daisy like here where Vanellope is, because I don't know, that's where all my Mickey and friends live. But then I was thinking Donald lives down here, maybe Daisy can go like in this patch of land. But then I'm like, I don't really want the sunlight to get blocked by a building here. This is meant to be like the meadow. So, it's all up in the air right now where I want things to be. And I don't want to decorate my house, my valley properly yet until I've unlocked all of the biomes, you know? So, very big predicament I'm in. I'm very indecisive and I'm very perfectionist. So I want everything to be perfect. Anyways, where was I foraging? I was in here, wasn't I? Actually, hold on. I think I want to visit Minnie real quick because I finally have gooseberries for her thanks to Eevee providing me with the goods that I don't have unlocked yet. Hi, Minnie. Please tell me you still want gooseberries. She's wanted gooseberries every time I've asked her. Yes, she does. Okay. I hate how sometimes the characters are like, they want something that you haven't even unlocked yet. And I'm like, well, I can't give you any of that. So. I like the Forest of Valor. I like to wander and explore. Ah, Minnie is so cute, isn't she just? What's the store looking like today? Not amazing. Not that great. Oh my god! Why do I feel like I need these slippers? I need them. I just do. Anyways, let's get out of the store before I buy anything else that I don't need but do in my head. Anyways. Oh gosh, Libby. Hi, you want a break? You're at work? What time is it for you guys? I can't maths the time zones. Like, it's 9:30 here. Minus 5. Like 4 p.m.? I'm guessing? I don't know. Oh, it's 6:30. Oh. 6:08. My brain. My brain! I can't think about time zones, please. Damn. Long shift today, I'm guessing. I don't know if you saw, but I visited Eevee's Valley and she gave me some items that I don't have yet. So very pleased with that. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna cherish that with my heart. We finally figured it out. Yeah. I think she's also gonna stream, so she had to go. But yeah, we gave each other a tour of our valleys, and now I really want to unlock the other biomes because I want to get Elsa so bad. I also really want to get Moana. But my favorite Disney movie is Encanto at the moment. Like, for a long time, actually, recently, it's been Encanto. So I'm very happy I have Mirabel already. But Moana's, like, close, like, top up there. Like, and even Frozen, like Elsa, Let It Go, up there. Yeah, here's the chest I was telling you guys about that I put into my valley so that I could easily like move stuff. I'm gonna keep my gooseberries. I don't really want this in here anymore. It's very full. I need to sort it out. I need more storage things. Oh, what is this? Okay, I don't need that. I don't. Oh, wait, no, I do. That's the gooseberries. My iron. Okay. Let's just sell the rest. Not that. I want to plant that. I want to sell that. Sell that. And sell that. And sell all of this because I can just earn it back. Actually, I won't sell that. I actually won't sell that either. That's fine. I'll keep the rest.
Yep, works for me.
Okay, we're just gonna keep foraging until we get Scrooge to level 8, and then we will figure out where to put Daisy because I don't know. I'm gonna have to move Vanellope, but I don't have space to move Vanellope. I think I started working on like getting the upgrades for the spade, like the shovel, but I don't have the quest unlocked for that yet, so I can't even do it. Yeah. But I do want to place Daisy before the end of the stream. Oh. Yeah, and I don't want to stream too late. Like, it's already almost 10 p.m. here, guys. So sad. I do have a whole plan though for my valley, like to decorate it and look nice, but in my head I feel like I can't do any decorating until I've like fully like unlocked the map fully. How close is Donald to leveling up? Very close. That's good. Okay. I don't like to fish all of the little bubblies, but I like to get the blue ones and the yellow ones because they are usually like rarer items and more important fish. I'm also quite bad at fishing. Like on the Switch, I always miss the time to click. Me. I can't wait till I can get rid of these mushrooms though. Hi Mochi! How's your games been? I'm gonna be placing Daisy soon, but I still haven't decided where I want to put her. If I do put her down, where if I put her down, to be fair, might just be a temporary place for now because I'm gonna redecorate soon. Up and down, oh. How has Dreamlight been? Do you like it? I love this game. It's very relaxing and I enjoy it a lot. Even though I'm just like mindlessly harvesting stuff and like doing like not like a lot of things on it at the moment, it's still so enjoyable. I'm very excited to get Daisy. You played religiously? Do you still play it? Oh, yeah, take your time. I loved being so relaxed. I love it being so relaxed. Yeah. I literally do just take my time, like with the quests and everything as well. I try not to like, I don't really do quests all the time. I don't speed through it. I'm just like enjoying my time and like trying to grind for money and get cool stuff from the shop and decorate my valley eventually. You take a break. You took a bit of a break. You visit the shop every day but haven't played. Oh, that's fair. Um, Especially if you've had the game for a while. And like there's like lots of games coming out and lots of games to play that is like, I don't know about you, but I find it hard to keep up with my games list of what I want to play. There's so many games I want to try out, but I have a lot on my list to play right now, so makes sense. Especially like if you've played a lot and you've already like made your valley pretty and stuff. That's why I'm really taking my time with it and procrastinating it in a way because I don't want to complete it very quickly. Okay, let's go and sell this. And then... Wait, no, he's still not leveled up, has he? Okay, let's go down here. I really want to see Daisy. We will get her before the end of the stream. Don't worry. Oh. Okay. Oh, wrong button. There we go. Oh, I did it! He leveled up. Okay. Nice, we got a little hat from him. So now we've unlocked a quest actually, and that's what I was doing. I was trying to level him up so we could get the quest. Because I have this thing in my head where I'm like, I need to do all the quests in this biome before I unlock the next biome, but that's just me being silly. But we're not gonna okay, not right now. But oh, okay. We'll accept it, but we're not gonna do it right now. Just, I want to stop hanging out with you. Please leave me. Leave me. Let's bye. Let's hang out later, okay?
You have a bull market day.
Alright, let's figure this out. Where are we gonna put Daisy? So this is the valley. This is what it's looking like. So I haven't been able to do much decorating, especially on the Switch. It's so hard to like move things. But I definitely want to move Vanellope up into the Forest of Valor. I don't know where I can put her. I need to move some things around for the time being. I can't move this stuff. It is annoying. Can she fit her house here? Does it fit there? Does it fit? Oh. Oh. I'm gonna have to get rid of those like things around first, and then we're gonna put that there, and then we're gonna put Daisy next to the shop. So we'll just put Vanellope here for now. Okay, perfect. That is enough for me. Oh, that is not in the right place at all. That is embarrassing. Yeah, that tree can move out of the way as well, actually. Here, let's put that like that. Or, um, um, oh. Okay, where is she? Right, let's put this like that. And then I don't know if I like that actually. Let's leave it like that actually. Okay, and then we can place Daisy's house where Vanellope's house was, because then it makes sense. Like Mickey and friends, their houses are in this area. Let's just clear the path a little bit. Okay, we put Daisy's house. Okay. Do I have money?
Good day to you.
Oh, I just about have enough. You guys can't see. Hold on. Just about enough, guys. Where should I put this? It's in my way, isn't it? We're gonna do it. We can earn back the money, it's fine. Yay! We got Daisy's house! Welcome, Daisy! Why is Mirabelle just in the back? He's so cute! Oh my god, yeah! Let's take a little selfie, but Mirabelle's just in the back for some reason. I don't like that. Oh, they both close their eyes. Okay. Just do a nice smile. Why are you doing such a scary smile? Okay, that's cute. That's cute! We got Daisy! Very happy. Let's go. Talk to Daisy. Daisy, come here.
Oh, it's you!
She came back too. How brave you. Did you discover anything? Won't you get bored here? Did you discover anything?
What?
Has strong ties to our old ruler, which is you, am I right? How did you know? You just got back. I'm so professional.
Oh.
Join Daisy in her house. Okay. I swear I placed it like perfectly so that this would line with the door, but I guess I did not. You get that, Daisy. Oh my god, her house is so nice. What is this? Okay, let's talk to her.
You.
Her house is so bright.
Mm-hmm.
What am I forgetting? You had a place where you shared amazing creativity and personal style. It was called The Boutique, a shop filled with stylish custom creations for everyone. That sounds amazing. It really was. I loved it and was determined to protect it. So when the forgetting started, I went to see someone who made dreams come true. Dreams come true. Don't worry, things are getting better every day. I'm sure you will soon. Oh, okay. Oh, that's the boutique, is it? Oh, okay. Green, topaz. I have all of these things, I think. Okay. I have to water the boutique. And it will grow back and appear in the village by itself, but won't it grow back inside your house?
Oh.
Pick it up and place it on the ground, then the magic will take effect. Okay.
Goodbye.
Is this the boutique? Now I need to find somewhere to put the boutique. Oh my god, my brain. I have no space. I need to figure out how to update my shovel to get rid of those mushrooms and then I'll have more space.
Oh gosh, it sure is nice today.
Oh, where? White daisies, peaceful meadow. Okay. Dude, it's so nice. I haven't added Daisy yet. I know, I literally didn't add her because I wanted to do it on stream. And now we've added her together and she's so cute. Okay, now I have to craft this thing and then I get the boutique, which I think is where you can like put your creations and then when people come to visit your valley, they can buy them or whatever, like try the outfits on and stuff. Okay. Wonderland Amplification Elixir. I think that was the right one. Wait. I can... Do I need this? Oh no, I don't need it. Why? I thought I was gonna upgrade my tool. Okay, well, I just wasted that, but it's fine. It's fine. What do I need to do? Um, used it in my inventory. Okay. Use. In Daisy's house. Okay. I need to water in her house. Pick up. And then place it down, I'm guessing. But where do we want to place the boutique? Like, I have no space. I have actually got no space. Oh, it's huge, guys. Where am I meant to put this? I don't want to put it, like, on the meadow. Where am I actually meant to put this? Oh. Where am I meant to put it? I don't have space in my valley for this. It's so big. Like here? It does look very cute. I think I'm gonna move this. Put it there for now. I'm gonna redo like my whole valley soon anyways because I want to make it more aesthetically pleasing and pretty. So I'll just put it here for now, like on this little corner. Yeah. It will do for now. Okay, let's go into the boutique. It's so big and out of place there, though. Oh my god. I was just about to say, just place it for now. Till an idea hits on how you want it to look. Yeah, I literally just... I'm not gonna think about decoration or anything until I've unlocked the whole map, because I still have like 3 biomes to unlock. And then when I have all that space, and then you know, like, I can't access these areas across the bridges yet because of the mushroom and stuff. When I unlock everywhere, I will redecorate the whole thing. But for now, this looks very out of place, but it's fine. It's fine. It's not annoying me at all. Whoa. This is huge. This is huge.
Well, look who it is.
She's so cute. Look how pretty she is. Okay, so yeah. So this is where you can display and share clothes and furniture that you design, and then your friends who visit can access it. Is this something I have to do? But I have no sense of taste. Is it something I have to do? No, not at all. But it's a great way to flex your creativity. Okay, so it's an optional thing, but that's pretty cool still. Where do I start? Okay, let's see.
Goodbye.
Okay, so interact with the boutique, display and place clothing or furniture, select the items you want to use, and then your visitors can... Okay, let's... What should I do? Put on an outfit. Let's put on my t-shirt that I designed. Did it work? Confirm. There you go. That's the Minnie Mouse t-shirt I designed, everybody. Oh, and then I have to unlock more of these things. Interact. What should I do? Show my own design. Oh yeah, this is like the mini picnic table I made. Very mini-based stuff that I made, isn't it? Oh, she's over there. Okay. Come here, Daisy.
Well, look who it is.
I like it a lot, actually. Mini challenge game we used to play. The idea is to create, let's call them tableless. What? Okay, okay.
Looks
Oh,
like a
is that
beach
like...
day to me.
Oh, is there challenges? Okay, okay. That's fine. More challenges to do. Complete a boutique challenge. How do I do that? Did she explain and I just did not hear? What's the challenge today? I think you should design something that uses shoes, seating, casual, black, simple, calm. That's a lot.
Don't be a stranger.
Okay, how do I do this? Shoes? How do I... Shoes? No? Okay, customize something. Let's make a chair that's black and simple. Just a black chair. Is this gonna count? I don't know.
This is truly the perfect place to live.
Wait, how do I submit stuff?
Right.
No, you haven't completed the challenge yet.
Bye-bye.
Wow. Oh, she has a shop as well. I can like buy stuff. Oh, this is cute. I need to get Daisy coins. Oh, headphones. Oh my god, please. How do I do this, Daisy? How do I do this? What do I... Did I complete the game? Two seating. I'm just gonna take a picture because I'm not gonna remember this all. Can't lie.
Looks like a beach day to me.
How do I know what this is? I don't know what I'm doing. Do I need to put it on display? A black chair. Amazing.
Oh, it's you!
Oh,
Bye-bye.
she doesn't like my design. Oh. Oh no, now this is just stuck on here. Are you kidding me? I don't want that there. Oh man, what the frick? I don't know what I'm doing. How am I meant to add something that's... Oh, I know. Okay, hold on. No, edit. I need to add like a motif. Um... Simple and calm. It's not calm. A leaf is pretty calm, right? Um, right? This is pretty calm, a leaf. Surely. Oh. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's harder than I
You got a
thought.
story for me? You know, the village could use a little more excitement.
I can't even make shoes.
I've got to get the scoop on these villains. I know a story when I see one.
You know what? That's fine. We will finish the stream here because it's already 10 p.m. and I have work. So we were quite busy today. We did lots of foraging. We even visited Eevee's valley, and then we got Daisy and the boutique. Hopefully I'll be able to finish one of the challenges from Daisy, but yeah, I don't know when the next stream will be, but do keep an eye on my socials. I will keep updates there all the time. I post quite a lot actually, even though I'm busy. I post all the time, but yeah, my socials are all linked in my beacons. Do also check out any of my collaboration links. It does help support me as well as the collaborators. And yeah, good night everybody, and thank you for joining. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.